those of us who helped out with picking up Maulana from the airport, hosting him. We appreciate each and every one of you. May we, bless you. In special thanks to Maulana Hassan AlSheraa for blessing us today, since last Majlis of this series. Hopefully, he will bless us with his presence in the near future also. We'd like to request him to please come and take the pulpit. Please recite a loud salat for him.
من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. And another special request for the Surah Al-Fatiha on behalf of your Murhameen, my Murhameen, and particularly الفاتحة for Aminullah Imani, Sakina, Aminullah, Rahimallah, and قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك أيتها الصديقة الشهيدة الممتحنة. امتحنك الله الذي خلقك قبل أن يخلقك فوجدك لمن امتحنك صابرا. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بسيدتنا ومولاتنا فاطمة.
hungry for what we
respect to the direction the Muslim Ummah turned after the prophetic passing. One group will emerge and say, it rightfully went to the people that collected and elected and made and proclaimed that the successor to the messenger of God is someone subject to the whims and the will of an electorate that was chosen on the day of Sahih. Whereas another group emerges and says, rather than we select God's representatives on earth, God is best suited to select his own representatives. At the end of the day, when you have a leader or when you have a president, an authoritative body, and when your Lord announced to the angels, I will bring upon the earth a caliph. A khalifa, the etymology and the wording is very important in understanding imamah, because in the school of Ahlul Bayt, in our aqidah and theology, khilafa and imamah are the same exact thing. Because the term khalifa, the etymology and the root, for those that know the Arabic, from the term khalif. If you decide to speak of directions, the front of you is amam, hence the imam of salah is ahead of you. Amam, imam. Behind you is khalfak. And so the terminology indicates who you leave behind as the one who is most fit to lead those after you. God decided to leave someone behind in charge before the human timeline begins its progress. Before I bring down humans, I need to have you understand that you are not left alone. That in every single period where humans are, there will always be someone you could refer to, such that you cannot turn around and say, what an unjust God you were, bringing me down without any instructions. Allah reiterates this in Surah Al-Rahman, the beginning ayat. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ar-Rahman, allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. That Allah is Ar-Rahman, the embodiment of mercy. And because he is the embodiment of mercy, he then decided to do what? خلق الإنسان and then علم القرآن. What was the order? If you know Surah Al-Rahman, it's Ar-Rahman علم القرآن. خلق الإنسان علمه البيان. This order is not arbitrary. Because God is the embodiment of compassion and mercy, before he created you and I, he decided to bring a guide for you. علم القرآن was step number one. I will teach the Quran. That's an interesting word, by the way, because many assume the Quran to be a collection of papers. Now it's alive, because only that which lives can receive ilm. Only that which is alive can be subject and a recipient of knowledge. I can teach you if you are alive and conscious to be taught. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam states in a beautiful prophetic hadith, let's all keep it in our hearts. 3 will complain on Yawm al-Qiyamah. A masjid that was abandoned, which means the masajid will be speaking. Did you or did you not take care of the masjid? Did you or did you not honor the masajid of Allah, biyut Allah? The dhikr of Allah is mentioned in these houses of God. Take care of them. Whether they're ruined, scratched, interpret it like your own house, for goodness sake. You wouldn't tolerate that for your house. Don't tolerate that was a scholar that was born neglect and the Ummah decided to forget reading. The Quran will be complaining because it's living, because it's subject to the recipiation of ilm, therefore علم al-Quran, then you, Banu Adam, will not be abandoned. But even before ta'lim al-Quran al-Kareem, there must be a Quran al-Naw. Has to be someone available to explain to you the ma'soom of the Quran. The Quran is ma'soom by the dalil of Rasulullah, إني تارك فيكم الثقلين كتاب الله وعترة أهل بيتي. الثقلين and the book of Allah is one part of the two weighty, valuable components of success in life. The kitab is ma'soom. Whatever Allah decides to leave next to the kitab has to also be ma'soom, otherwise it will be redundant. Just give me the ma'soom. Give me that. When we use the term ma'soom, I mean infallible, error-free, does not have a sin or blemish. If you follow it, it'll take you to paradise. But when you give me that, whatever you give me afterwards, if it's not ma'soom, it's a waste of my time. I just want the perfect. Therefore, everything and anything he levels right after it must be on par with the Quran. When there's a Quran, there has to be a speaking one as well. Henceforth, in the event of to stop the advancement of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Muawiyah raised the Quran. That's not to say Muawiyah was this lousy, he was a strategically clever warman and warmonger. He knows that if I raise this, many read the seerah of Tariq Damash that discuss the details of the battle of Siffin. These are all resources from non-Shia schools of thought, but we agree with every one of the details that occurred because the Imam was really oppressed. He looks at them and he says, "Why did you stop?" They said, "How can we fight a Quran that is being raised? We're not going to fight Kitabillah." He says, "Wayhakum ana al-Quran al-natiq." Woe to you, I am the speaking Quran. This is deception. They're misguiding you because they see themselves on the brink of losing. And they use this tactic. Those that separated from the Imam's group turned into the Khawarij. Khuruj. They left the deen of Allah and they forced the Imam no more continuing. Sallu ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. In any case, Imam made a distinction that yes, while there is a written Quran, I am the one that can come and tell you about it. Because you need a ma'soom to interpret the ma'soom. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen is that ma'soom for us. Now in that case, and in this tumultuous circumstance, the ma'soom was abandoned. As soon as Rasulullah leaves, pandemonium emerges, erupts. Suddenly, you find the Muslim world divided in two pieces. Do you accept that general election, or do you believe that it was meant to go a different direction? This is the main dividing factor in the world today, that 3/4 of the Muslim world will disagree with you, and you are perhaps 1/4 of that world from the school of Ahlul Bayt. Don't think that that means you're a minority. That's actually not the case. Because what does it mean to be a minority? I mean, if anything, Sayyid al-Shuhada could have said, and many, by the way, many youth come and say to this, they say this to me. Alhamdulillah, having had the honor of traveling all across the United States, Europe, and Africa, I notice in general Q&As, always this following question, that if we are the right way of guidance, and we are guided by the right manhaj and the right aqidah, why are we the minority? Authenticity is not always reflected in the quantity of its adherents. Otherwise, Sayyid al-Shuhada could have said we're wrong. He was 72 versus 30,000. But he said it's the truth, and the truth hurts. And the Imam said, if you want the truth and you decide to follow it, prepare to lose your friends. Because the fact is, the truth hurts for many people. And this divides the Muslim world. Furthermore, how are you so sure that we are a minority if the Muslim Shia population demographics will show you today are about 260 million adherents? That's 260 individuals united on one manhaj.
the other worldviews are divided on their schools of thought, schools of fiqh, and schools of aqa'id. Can you be an Ash'ari, but at the same time a Sufi? No, you cannot. But can you be a Hanbali, but at the same time a Mu'tazili? No, you cannot. They conflict in many directions. If you are a traditionalist, من أهل الحديث, the direction of the direction of the Salafiyah, in that case, you cannot be a worldview that embraces, for example, Khalq al-Quran. You have to embrace Qadim al-Quran, that the Quran is pre-eternal. These divide the Muslim world, let alone the worlds of fiqh of Malik ibn Anas, Abu Hanifa, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and Nu'man bin Thabit, and those directions, and the Shafi'i. We're united on our strands from the fiqh. Yes, you might say, what about the opinions of taqleed? But that's the same madhab, and the same madhab invites taqleed. It's not a direction of a different school of thought. Therefore, if in that case it's about unity, we're united. We are united. Because if you divide each group, the Hanabila, they are less than the 280 million of the Shia. The Shawafi', less than the 280 million of the Shia collectively. The Maliki, of course, less than the 280 million of the Shia. And the Hanbali, the Hanaf, they're less than that as well. So then, who's the majority all of a sudden? From fiqh, well, the Shia are. How about in aqa'id? We don't believe God has a leg, nor He has a back, nor that the Quran was pre-eternal with Allah. Everything that is not Allah is created. Everything is a creation. This is a major dispute between the Ash'ari worldview and the Mu'tazili worldview all of a sudden. Therefore, in schools of jurisprudence and schools of theology, there are divisions. But if you bring them into one monolith, you can call them Ahlul Sunnah. But if you bring us, we're all united on our standpoint. So in reality, we're not a majority, my dear respected brothers and sisters. But nonetheless, despite that, the divisions are linked back at this very pertinent, critical moment that the majority of the ummah and a major element is this one lady. Salamullahi alayha. So brothers, take care of that, please. Linked back to one lady. She can decide and determine a follower of Ahlul Bayt and a person that has left the folds of the Thaqalayn. It's not a case where you now come and throw jabs and pejoratives at other members of other schools of thought. Let's not be individuals that, for the sake of inciting flames of fitna, look for opportunities to hurdle insults, to emphasize division. We are all about unity, because in a world today, if you're not united, it's over. The Islamophobes couldn't care less. The maniacs that are oppressing many Muslimin across the world don't care about your aqidah before they attack you. That doesn't matter to them. On social issues, we are united. But on aqaid, we cannot jeopardize. Nor on history. And the event of Fatimiyya is a dividing factor. Because it wasn't me or you or anyone in the last 1,000 years who made Fatimiyya. It began with the events that comprised the initial critical moments. Let's open the following. Fatimiyya was discussed in Sahih al-Bukhari. It was discussed in Sahih Muslim. How so? When I come and I mourn Fatima to Zahra, I'm not saying I found a rogue narration years later in Bihar. I'm saying I will use my own efforts scientifically to show and cite where you and I can agree about Lady Zahra. That I, if I put the jigsaw pieces together, can conclude I need to mourn her. But if I use it from your own resources, why don't you mourn her as well? If you contend that Lady Zahra is the most beloved to Rasulullah, then we're on a good roll. And no Muslim will say she isn't. No matter how much a wife of the Prophet is praised, the most beloved to the Messenger of God was his daughter. No one doubts that. Therefore, when the Messenger of God makes a claim as the following, فاطمة بضعة مني من آذاها فقد آذاني أو من يؤذيها فقد آذاني. There is another hadith, فاطمة بضعة مني من غضبها غضبني. These two are narrated both in the canonized work of the authentic work of Mohammed bin Ismail al-Bukhari. And for polemical purposes, these are being referenced. I don't need to search far and wide in the material and literature of my brothers and sisters from other schools of thought to justify my own worldview. However, in a world that is strictly divided on this one mas'ala, the mother of ironies is, it's even in my own brothers and sisters' literature, that when Lady Zahra is being described in this manner, if she is angry, my anger has now been invoked. But then he also adds, and this one's not mentioned often, if she is hurt, man آذاها, so there's two terms. غضبها, غضب is anger, ومن آذاها, whoever hurts her. But the term adiyya, and we spoke about it in brief last night, is in reference to annoyance. But you can see it in English translated as abuse. The Holy Quran al-Karim elaborates. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولُهُ. Surely those who abuse or have adha being done towards God and His Messenger. If I abuse God or His Messenger, but the term adha is being used. So abuse could be ta'deeb, addada, allama. But Allah used the most simple of these terms, adha. Man yu'dhu Allah wa rasulahu, la'anahum Allah fi dunya wal akhirah. Allah, and when you're asked why do you do la'na, Allah was the first to do la'na. Allah says, I will condemn them in this life and the afterlife. If you so much as bring about adiyya. And then again, وَعَدَّ لَهُمْ, and Allah has prepared for them عَذَابًا, a strong punishment or tormenting. Adab is ta'deeb, tormenting. Punishment, muhina, embarrassing and humiliating. That is awaiting those who simply produce adha. I link Sahih al-Bukhari's hadith that Fatima بضعة مني من آذاها فقد آذاني. فاطمة بضعة مني من غضبها فقد غضبني. And the hadith is linked. ومن غضبني وأذاني أذى الله. Whoever angers her and annoys me has done the same to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then I continue. The hadith is in the same Sahih word in both. That Fatima al-Zahra, narrated by Aisha, died, matat, وهي غاضبة. Remember the term? غضبها, died, وهي غاضبة على عمر وأبو بكر. That she died and she was angry at Umar ibn al-Khattab and Abu Bakr ibn Abi Quhafa. Not for the purposes of fitna and disunity and sectarianism, but the purposes of academic discourse and civil discussion. That if you're going to shove on towards me that you are the source of problems, first clean your own house before you start pointing fingers at other people's homes. Don't say your sources and narrations have brought nothing but hatred in the ummah. First, watch out. When you point, you have three fingers pointing back right at you. First, see what you have to do. Don't throw stones in glass houses, because we can extract the same material from your own canonized sense. But the shuruh and the expositions come. Fath al-Bari, the Sharh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, that analyzes this. The discussion is, she did die angry, and she was angry, and when the Prophet said this hadith, it was not about the first two, but rather it was revealed in the honor of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Because, of course, there was a moment, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, this is the exposition, there's always a sharh, that Imam sought to marry Abu Jahl's daughter. Suddenly, Lady Zahra got word of it and she became angry. She goes to complain to Rasulullah, and Rasulullah says this hadith, Fatima bad'atun minni man adaha faqad adani. That's the explanation of the hadith. There's a number of flaws in that idea. Number one, Imam Ali can marry anyone he wants. It's halal in the religion of Islam. I thought we were Muslims. You can. وَانْكِحُوا مَا طَابَ لَكُم مِّنَ النِّسَاءِ مَثْنَى وَثُلَاثَ وَرُبَاعَ. Maybe someone might not enjoy this one, but still, it's a hadith that exists. Or rather, an ayah of the Holy Quran, the Imam can marry. Secondly, Imam has no one else better to marry than the daughter of Abu Jahl. When you have fault, you're not interested in anyone else. And that's not the goal of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, marriage. That's why in the life of Imam and Fatima, he never married another lady. Until Lady Zahra passes away, she then, with her own will, instructs him, marry my niece Lubaba. That's by her own will. However, in this case, in the life, and you notice, in the love relationships between Fatima and Ali, Khadija and Mohammed, none of them got married to other women when the partners were alive. For over for about 25 years. Rasulullah got married when he was about 25 years old. So for about, not that, for about 15 years, Rasulullah never marries another lady because he's in love with his wife, Sayyidah Khadija. She is sufficient to him. And in the life of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen and Lady Zahra for those 10 or so short years, he never marries another lady. So for him to go after the daughter of Abu Jahl is something that contradicts everything. Furthermore, it contradicts even the Quran. Secondly, Rasulullah is not in that place to say, you've made her angry for doing something that's halal for you. That's not the case. That also doesn't address the hadith of Lady Zahra dying angry. She could have been dead and angry with Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, if that's the logic, but she was angry at other people. So this is a square that's trying to be circled, and a circle that's trying to be squared, but they're two different shapes, and they will not fit together. Given that context, Fatimiyya, the foundations have already been presented in the canonized texts of my own brethren. Now, in that case, do I then come and I say, out of spite, out of a pejorative, or low jabs? No. But the thing is, I am usually the recipient of pejorative, spite, and low jabs, telling me not to honor, trying to use excuses like it's unity purposes. We're going to be living in a generation when we keep using the excuse of unity, and this is not bad. You unite on social issues, but never jeopardize your aqa'id, because one day when they came to Imam Sadiq sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they came to Imam Sadiq. Imam Sadiq, how long was he after Imam Abi Abdullah in the events of Karbala? He is simply one Imam away, because Imam Bakr was in attendance, his father. They came to him and said, why do you constantly remember Karbala? He said that you would have forgotten like you forgot Khadir. Why do you remember Karbala? How long has it been since the events of Karbala? No more than approximately 35 or so years. Then you would have forgot it or so, like you forgot the events of Ghadir. Therefore, it's important to revive such events and seasons, such as Fatimiyya, such as Ghadir, but do it with this degree of hikmah that you can maximize ilm, not fitna. And that's easy to accomplish. But in a world today, we're always subjugated. That you are the people of fitna. No, we'll show you that even from your own places, we can see the foundations of Fatimiyya. But then, and this is a truthful statement, then why are you suggesting that yes, there may have been problems? It's not, for the love of God, we don't believe in isma in the sense if you come from the school of thought of Ahlul Sahaba. But if you don't believe in isma, then you're going to see problems. I've told you, we reject the concept of infallibility post the prophetic message, so we're going to see these problems. You can see Muawiyah fight Imam Ali, but we both adore them. But the thing is, we didn't believe they were ma'soom to begin with, so we expected this to happen, even if that's for Lady Zahra alayhi salam. That does not address the principle Rasulullah gave you, that if she is angry with someone, God's anger has been invoked. That's something you have to live with and take to your grave. Secondly, that's great if you don't believe in isma. That works better in my favor. Now, there are those who have sinned, because I believe my Lady of Light can never sin, because of the concept of infallibility. Therefore, what she has done is in her right. What you have accepted was a sin that was committed. What about these details that emerged? Because you're making a bold statement. And by the way, this is well within the right of anyone to ask, that such bold statements deserve bold evidence to substantiate them. Can you show and provide where you can claim that my most venerated and honored members from the school of the Sahaba are actually one of the greatest enemies and at enmity with the members of Ahlul Bayt? Because I will contend that they were not. You need to provide evidence. The following is a methodology to substantiate the early events that have usurped, but you need to continue with the timeline of history. It's very important to remember that history is his story. Whoever was in authority allowed what was written to be produced. And we all know that immediately after the messenger died, there was an effort to eradicate the ahadith of Rasulullah. This is something widespread accepted, that the ahadith were compiled in the Khilafah, the first Khalifa, and burnt at a pile. Why? Because that the excuse was given حتى لا يختلط القرآن بالحديث, so that ahadith cannot be confused with Quran. Let us come and burn these ahadith. Many ahadith were burnt. That's one effort. Secondly, there was no period where Ahlul Bayt were in charge post the period of the Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, whereby they could allow for the mass production and spread of the teachings that happened in the early history. Because you see, look at the work of the Muwatta of Malik ibn Anas. The Muwatta was a collection, dogmatic, similar to Sahih al-Bukhari, but preceding it, where it's the fiqh of the Imam of the Maliki school of thought. How was that one produced? And he was, by the way, the first of these four Imams from our brothers and sisters from Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. He emerged under the order of Abu Ja'far al-Mansur al-Dawaniqi, who was the Khalifa that poisoned Imam al-Sadiq. Abu Ja'far al-Mansur al-Dawaniqi had ordered, we need a constitution for the Muslim Ummah. Give me a judge who is a wise judge and let him write. They found him, Malik ibn Anas. And he ordered him, O Malik, write to us a fiqh that can be served as a constitution for the Muslim Ummah. And then he used this line, وَوَطِّئْهُ لِلنَّاسِ, and make it easy for people to comprehend. Henceforth he wrote the Muwatta, but he added two conditions. Stay away from the easy ahadith of Ibn Abbas and the ahadith that are seen as a bit difficult from Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. If you read the Muwatta of Malik, it's mystic, not a single hadith by Imam Ali. That is the first source where you find the famous fabricated narration. And I say fabricated, again, not to throw jabs, look at you, fake, not true. No. It admits it's not real. The fake hadith where it says, and it was said, qila, and that on the day the messenger was about to leave Hajj, إِنِّي تَارِكُمْ فِيكُمْ الثَّقَلَيْنِ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ وَسُنَّتِي. That's the first moment where this hadith emerged. And it says, it was said, no chain of narrators. And the style that it's introduced in is, it was said. Yeah, but who said it? Who said it? It was said. Who said it? Because in my school of thought, we put a very big, deep, rigorous methodology of studying ahadith. That's why we have a heritage and a history of the ulama and the hawza and the seminary, where they come and they study this to break down which is exactly the report of Rasulullah. This is not a narration to you. But then when you're writing things on the commission of authorities of a government that hates Ahlul Bayt, that were the ones responsible for poisoning members of Ahlul Bayt, like Imam al-Sadiq, of course you're not going to get books that are praising Ahlul Bayt, and you'll see these fabrications. Or even like such as the book of Al-Rasail al-Shafi'i, written in the years of Banu al-Abbas as well. Or even Bukhari, the likes, written when, during the life of Imam al-Hadi, the Imam's in prison. And so whatever is allowed to be published, accepted, is only done through the establishment's eye. You cannot contradict their aqidah. I remember, and just to bring this home a little bit, 35 years ago this happened. My father mentions in Iraq, we have the Minhaj al-Salihin, the book of fiqh and rulings of Ayatollah al-Shaheed Mohammed Baqir al-Sadr, rahmatullah alayh. His book, we would follow it. We were young, we were doing his taqleed. Whenever we would read it, we would take it and read. But then when we want to put it away, we'd go in the backyard and bury it. Because every now and then, the Ba'athis would come and knock on the doors, and they would investigate the houses to see if there's anything that is a threat to us. One of the banned works was his book. And if they caught you holding his book, you would be thrown in jail because it would be deemed as conspiracy. Why do you own a book written by someone speaking against the government? And there are many who went to jail simply for owning a book. Now we know why it was difficult to see books of seerah written by the followers of Ahlul Bayt in a time period that had animosity against the Ahlul Bayt. If only 35 years ago this happened. Arba'in. The Arba'in was this long practice. From 1973 to 2001, it was banned to walk to the shrine of Imam Hussein. Now, recently we just got this opportunity, but it looked like a threat. If you were walking in front of the government and you're assembling, you could be a threat to them. Therefore, now it hits home. Suddenly when you hear narrations such as why we have to utilize some resources that may not be written and produced from members of Ahlul Bayt is because we never have the opportunity, because history is his story. Break the word down. Whoever had political power had the opportunity to write and allow the dissemination of ahadith, whichever they saw fit, but even then you cannot deny that Lady Zahra died, that she has her anger linked with the anger of the Messenger of God and God. Furthermore, even now in Sahih Muslim, she says, but I order you, Ya Ali, do not allow Umar and Abu Bakr to attend my funeral. I'm not hiding any narration, because if I see them as clear as day, then I want to research, and so I can find common ground. Because I genuinely love my brother and sister who calls on the Quran and Allah and His Messenger, but may not necessarily embrace the same aqidah of mine. I say, let's come together in a common term. Because if the Quran says, لِتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى, you will find the closest to you are the ones who say we are Christians. Closest to me in mawaddah, in love. And if I am called by God to be close to my Christian brethren, then what about my own Muslim brethren? Let's unite. Agree with me, because you agreed already. Lady Zahra was with us. La ilaha illallah. Don't accept the ahadith that I put forth. Don't reject them. By all means, reject them. I'm not forcing you and force feeding my hadith down your throat. I'm not. That's my narrative. To me is my narrative. To you is yours. But at least accept your narrative. That the lady who Prophet of God says is me and I am her is angry at some individuals because in this religion you do not earn your respect through marriage. You earn it through merit. I don't care who she is to Rasulullah or he is to Rasulullah, father-in-law, son-in-law. If it was about marriage, then the life of Nuh would have been straight to Jannah. But God said in the Holy Quran, ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا لِلَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا امْرَأَةَ لُوطٍ وَامْرَأَةَ نُوحٍ. Wives of messengers of God, we've seen this movie before, Ya Rasulullah. Don't think you're the only one that might have a difficult time with a wife that is possibly conspiring against you. What is Tahrim revealed about anyways? Surah Al-Tahrim, you will always find in the books of the Tafsir that Surah Al-Tahrim is one of the quickest pages that the tafsir is done very quickly. There's no deep analysis for some reason, because the ayat are very vehement when it comes to warning and condemning the two wives of the Messenger of God. فَإِن تَظَاهَرَ عَلَيْهِ. And if you decide to conspire against him, فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ مَوْلَاهُ. Then God is his guardian. وَجِبْرِيل, and Gabriel is his guardian. وَصَالِحِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, and that one pure mu'min among them is his guardian, if you decide to conspire against him. In this religion, you earn your respect through merit, not marriage. Now suddenly, Lady Zahra is angry. Pandemonium emerges. An election is happening and the Messenger of God has yet to be there. And they've elected Abu Bakr. But you can't have an election when the electorate is not present. Imam Ali didn't vote in that election. Salman, Miqdad, Abu Dhar, Ammar, Jabir did not vote in this election. Hudayf ibn al-Yaman did not vote. The event where Rasulullah, before he dies, he sends Usama bin Zayd to go out with a whole army. That whole army did not participate because they were gone. So how are you voting when the electorate are not present? It's okay. This happens suddenly. We need to receive the allegiance of people who have yet to vote in the event of Saqifa. It's not a discussion we're going to discuss. In the near future, maybe, God willing, if we have the honor to serve this community. Suddenly, Abu Ubayd al-Jarrah, Abu Bakr, Umar ibn al-Khattab, Khalid ibn al-Walid, al-Mughira bin Shu'bah, Unfud bin Umar, Aslam bin Salim, these individuals gather and they said, we elected somebody, but we now need to find the allegiance and bay'ah of those who were not present. Malik ibn Nuwayla comes and he says that this was not done on fair terms. And I don't recognize that the legitimacy of the first Khalifa is valid. Said, what do you mean? My Khalifa is Ali. Persecuted Malik. Khalid ibn Walid was sent after him, and I think we're familiar with how Malik ibn Walid died. Beheaded. Suddenly, men were dispatched. Whoever did not pay allegiance must now pay allegiance. What is described as Hurub al-Ridda, the Ridda wars, the apostasy wars. Anyone who didn't is now an apostate. You can't go against the Khalifa or the Imam of your time, so this occurred. One lady stood up and would go from home to home with Imam al-Mu'mineen and Hassan and Hussein, telling them and reminding them of what Rasulullah left behind. And she would say, am I not your Prophet's daughter? They would say, of course, and you are the most beloved to us, O Fatima. She would say, then reconsider what you all just did today. Come and support Ali. Imam al-Mu'mineen, none came. From home to home, Lady Zahra holding her 2 children, and they would go. Either 40 days, we would mention, 75 days, or 90 days. Irrelevant. Every house as if the Hujjah came to your door. So no one can say, I didn't know. They actually came to your doors. And they would ask them and remind them, Imam Ali was chosen on that day of Qadr. Why are you going astray? They would say, we're afraid what is described as the Aql al-Jam'i, or the social mind. We all think alike. We can't go against the common norm. We're sorry, we apologize. And some will raise the question, and it's a good question to raise. How come Imam Ali did not rise and fight? Well, it's because when you have an entire ummah go one way, you're going to fight one man. Furthermore, on the day Rasulullah was passing, he left a will for Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ya Ali, should you have enough supporters, fight them. But if you do not have, then restrain your hands, let go of your blade, and be steadfast in the way of Allah. Rasulullah left this will for Amir al-Mu'mineen. If you have enough, fight them. But you will notice that Quraysh will come and unleash its fangs against you and on your loved ones. Restrain your blade and be steadfast on the way of Allah, and hold back your anger and do not be resentful. This was a will the Messenger of God left behind. Where do we see this? In the Kitab, Sulaym bin Qais al-Hilali. Some might discuss its authenticity. I don't accept it. Again, I'm not here forcing you to accept my narrations. I'm at least telling you accept yours to begin with, and put the pieces of your own puzzle together. It's not all rosy. You all already admitted you reject Isma, so accept that there are sins that have occurred, unless you believe in Isma. Suddenly, from that moment, the book in question, Sulaym bin Qais al-Hilali. Sulaym bin Qais al-Hilali records every of these details that we recite in Fatima, by the way. Every one of them. From the ambush, to the entry, to the attacks, to the slaps, all of them. How do I know it's reliable? At the very list, at the very minimum, Sulaym ibn Qais was a companion of Imam Ali, and you cannot deny that he at least existed, and that in the early period, forming the movements after Rasulullah, there was an opinion that Lady Zahra was a victim. Because even in the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba, a scholar from the non-Shia view, the reports of an ambush exist. And I say skip these narrations and books that many people haven't heard of. Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, Taqiyuddin Ahmad Ibn Taymiyyah, the founder of the Wahhabi movement, in his book, Minhaj al-Sunnah, mentions وَغَايَةْ verbatim, وَغَايَةْ مَا يُقَالْ. And the most we can say, that they decided to force themselves to the house of Fatima and Ali to see and investigate if there were weapons and money that belonged to the caliphate that shouldn't belong to them. Even that is rejected for us. How dare you enter the house of Fatima and Ali to see if they have weapons that perhaps they're going to use to overthrow the establishment? Furthermore, does that not show you that there is a disagreement going on between Imam al-Mu'mineen and the early establishment and that movement? وَغَايَةْ مَا يُقَالْ. And the most you can say, their belief in the approach to the house is accepted. These details, I'm not telling you to accept, but in your heart, tell me truly that it was a rosy moment and that one loved the other. That's something we can't. Furthermore, there is a process of gathering the presumptions, Jam' al-Qara'in, in the study of history. Why did Lady Zahra get buried angry? Why is she buried without a grave not known? Why did she order that the first 2 khulafa are not meant to be in attendance? Why is it that when her anger happens, it invokes the anger of Allah? How come Imam al-Mu'mineen did not give bay'ah, and that there has to be a movement to his house by the own admissions of the Arabic scholars from the non-Shia worldview? This is not something you can just neglect. I'm saying to you, let's believe in your hadith and forget mine. Something happened. This is something you will be questioned on the day of judgment. That how do you just sleep normally? How could you fall asleep? Knowing that the daughter of your prophet is angry at someone you used to get to Allah through. And you must do your research here. Because long have we seen fitna and the names of fitna being erupted and mentioned, and I am to blame. Rather, there's something that happened that is not healthy. We noticed the following. The events that emerged are as such, that there were efforts to receive allegiance. Imam's allegiance is the most important, because if Ali doesn't give allegiance, Ali does not recognize the Khilafah. Go and get it. And you may think this was one time, many times. The attempt happened multiple times. The event happened. In Al-Kafi, Shaykh al-Kulayni mentions, and that there was a miscarriage by the name of Muhassin, or Muhsin. Shaykh al-Mufid makes mention, and Shaykh al-Tusi mentions, and that there is no shadow of doubt, that Lady Zahra was subject to an oppression which led to her shahadat. Al-Malti-Shafi'i, a scholar, mentions in his writing of Hisham ibn al-Hakam, who was the companion of Imam al-Sadiq, says Hisham ibn al-Hakam is one of those Shia and Rafidi that believe in this fable, that's what he claims because he's not a Shia, that Lady Zahra was killed by the hands of the first establishment. So at the very least, in the time of Imam al-Sadiq, there was already an acceptance, because what's usually said is not even the Shia believe in this, it's later on, in your late material, you decided to create this fake story. Early on, there's already a consensus that's happening, that they're now trying to receive the bay'ah of Imam al-Mu'minin, because if he does not provide your allegiance, then who will ever recognize you? They dispatch. They go to the house of Imam Ali and Fatima, and they refuse entry. This was the first attempt. The next day, they go and they report the status that they're not allowing us anything, and Ali is not coming to pay allegiance. They are sent again. This time go, but make sure you are serious about this. Use your soft words and be good spoken, and say to them, Fatima, we love you. You are the closest to us after your father. Relinquish your husband, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, for us. Lady Zahra says, in the name of Allah, you try to concern yourself, while you are the party of Shaitan, trying to come to the party of Allah. By Allah, we will never emerge for you. They leave. Now it became problematic, because she is insisting we're not coming out. Lady Zahra, by the way, can do this. Why? Because it's her house. Read any hadith. The house is called Bayt Daru Fatima. It's hers, because who did it belong before her? Rasulullah. Who inherits Rasulullah besides his only daughter? Fatima. She has every right to go and see who's there. Furthermore, it's a greater hujjah upon the ummah that the second to Rasulullah is telling you no, so that you cannot deny the fact that you were refused and rejected. They say, now dispatch as many as you can. Take your torches, go to her home. You were using your soft tone earlier. Be upright and be straightforward this time. Do not return until you receive the bay'ah of the man she is hiding. Imam Ali is restrained by the will of Rasulullah. Ya Ali, don't fight them. Before then, Imam was received by 360 people. Before that event, they said, Ya Ali, we'll fight for you. Imam said, I'll test your Iman. Come tomorrow with your head shaven. Shave the head. These men, you're holding your swords, come tomorrow, condition, shave your head. Tomorrow comes, you know how many showed up? 5. Salman, Miqdad, Abdullah, Ahmad bin Yasir, and Hudayfa bin Yaman. They all show up. Imam says, if I had 40, I would have fought. If I had 40. But this is the state of the Ummah. Many of them like to say, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum. How we wish we would have been with you, فَنَفُوزَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. But then they betray you the next day. go back. And they beg, Ya Imam, we can do something. He says, the will of the Prophet was, if I have enough, I will fight. The next day comes, they dispatch over 110. Each man carrying the torch in his right hand and a sword in his left, and emerging to the home of Fatima Zahra. The house had two doors. One door to the street, the other to the masjid of Rasulullah. Because the house would be built around the masjid, and Rasulullah ordered to close all the doors except the door of Imam Ali. Many don't realize that they emerge from both sides of the house, from both sections of the doors of the house of Imam Ali and Fatima Zahra. They come and emerge. Umar ibn al-Khattab, Khalid ibn al-Walid, Ziyad bin Labid, Mughira bin Shu'bah, Ubaydullah Abu Ubayd al-Jarrah, Salama bin Aslam, and the members of the party of Shaitan come forth and they begin to yell, Ya Fatima, release Ali now. She says, by Allah, you come and threaten the daughter of your Prophet. You will never receive us in a moment of the eye. Please return back and I will not come forth. They said, O Fatima, once again, if Ali is not released, فَوَاللَّهِ لِأَحْرُقَ عَلَيْكُمَ الدَّارِ. For Allah, I will now burn the house on you. And she says, and you dare to say such language on the house that the wahi of Allah was revealed to. Jibreel would descend on this house. They replied, oh Fatima, it's not important right now. Release your husband. She says, if you do not leave, then I will expose my hair. Complain to Allah and bring down the la'na of Allah on the city that once loved Rasulullah. His daughter will destroy it. From that moment, O Mu'mineen, they begin to light the front door of the house of Fatima. They begin to scream and shout, Fatima, move away from this place. Let us bring out Ali ibn Abi Talib. She says, I will fight to protect the Imam of my time. From that moment, Lady Zahra presses her hand against the door, resisting and pushing them away from entry, until with their swords and torches they begin to push back. They notice that she is resisting. As they come forth, Khalid ibn al-Walid and Umar ibn al-Khattab simultaneously continue to kick the door of the house of Ali. One kick didn't work until they begin to use all their strength and they rush and tackle that door open. Lady Zahra was standing by the door on the wall of the home. And they don't see where she was. She was behind the door pressed. As they notice that they have crushed her behind that door, they begin to push rapidly against it until the nail on the door pierces the side of Lady Zahra. Lady Zahra begins to shout, Fidda, come and aid me. Come and aid me, for now my baby has fallen. Lady Zahra, lay down the door. As she is on the floor, her dress gets caught on fire and her abat begins to burn. They see her on the floor. One of the mala'in kicks her as she is down. Another one grabs his whips and begins to whip the daughter of Rasulullah. Another one unsheathes his sword and begins to punch her with the handle of the sword. Until Lady Zahra falls unconscious, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib rushes and grabs the man by his neck and he pins him to the floor. He begins to say, if it wasn't by the will of Rasulullah, Wallah, I would have killed all of you. From that moment, they tied Imam Ali's hands and they dragged the Imam to the masjid to pay allegiance. Lady Zahra became conscious and stood. She ran after Imam Ali. She grabbed Hassan and Hussein as she was going. Imam Hassan and Mujtaba narrates that one of the most difficult moments was as we were going with our mother. A man was looking at my mom and he slapped her on her eye. He slapped my mother on her eye. She enters the masjid of Rasulullah and she begins to say, Wallah, I will now invoke my la'na and I will condemn the city Al-Abbas asks Imam Ali, Ya Ali, tell your wife to calm down. Before she brings the la'na of Allah, she begins to lift the shirt of Rasulullah. She says, with this I will invoke my condemnations. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen looks at her and with his face tells her, be patient, Ya Fatima. At that moment, they forced the Imam to pay allegiance, and the Imam, with force, they grabbed his hand and made him touch the handle of that first caliph. A day later passes, Lady Zahra tells Bibi Fidda, oh Fidda, my strength is weak. These men have overpowered me. My energy is low. What once was an ummah that loved us has now betrayed us. Oh, Lady Fidda, I will retreat. Should I no longer make the sound of the Quran, please ensure that my children have eaten. Lady Zahra begins to read the Quran until she begins to stop reciting. Madluma Shahida, as she returns back to Allah. That day, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen goes to bury his wife Fatima, and he is surrounded by his children in the darkness of the night. Zainab to the left, Hussein to the right, and Hassan next to his father. Before the Imam buries his wife in the hole, he says to them, bid your mother farewell. Zainab threw herself on the feet of her love. Hassan threw himself on his mom. Hussein threw himself on the chest of his mother. Ammar bin Yasir says, I saw Ali say, oh Hussein, move from the chest of your mom. The hadith says Jibreel came down. He said, Ya Ali, move Hussein from the chest of his mother. They said, why? The angels cannot handle seeing Hussein crying on the chest of his mother. I say to them, O angels of Allah, you couldn't handle seeing Hussein on the chest of his mother. How did you handle seeing Shimr on the chest of Abu Abdullah, grabbing Abu Abdullah by his beard, raising his sword, and under the eyes of Zahra, slaughtering the son of Fatima? That's Imam Hussein, not Hussein. Hussein, Hussein, stand up, brother, stand up. Hussein, 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 stand up, all together. Hussein, 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 Ya 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 Hussein. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, all together, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hayya ala khayr al-amal, Hayya ala, all together, Hayya ala khayr Hussein, Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, just begin immediately. Just start.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل هيا على عمل هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين तेरी ज़हरा दर्द गम का ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا بابا میری ہر خوشی نظر سقیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی تیری زہرا درد و غم کا، ایک صحیفہ ہو گئی۔ نہ دیا جی بھر